Well, now I want to turn to Dennis Brennan. Dennis was here a few weeks ago. He's been on vacation since then, but he's going to talk about photography. And I think he's going to work with Phil to maybe go over some of Phil's pictures and get a reaction from Dennis on what he thinks about them. So, Dennis, welcome.
Well, glad to be here, Jim, as always, and I'm looking forward to getting started with Phil. So, Phil, go ahead and lay it on me, buddy.
Okay, hang on just a second. Let me, I kind of blew that there.
No, that's all right. Take your time.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll just go ahead and share here and we'll just leave it this way. It'll be fine. So this actually started, I took a bunch of photos about 7 years ago on a Feather River Canyon trip, and I'll show you some of what that was. By the way, if you haven't ever been in the Feather River Canyon, that's where the Western Pacific runs through the Sierra Nevadas. It's north of the Donner Pass, which is where the SP runs. And it's one of the most spectacular railroad runs in the world. And I'll show you a few pictures of some of the attractions that are there. So I have a wall that I basically downstairs in our house, we've got a reverse floor plan where the bedrooms are downstairs and one end has a game room on it, which is now I've gotten rid of the pool table. It's becoming a pool or a train room. And so I've moved the paintings, the pictures on there, that area on the walls to the other end of the house. And so I have them empty walls. So I was looking for something to use for some train-oriented wall art and thought it'd be nice to use some of the things I actually shot. I was also interested in entering a couple of pictures in the NMRA convention photo contest. And I've also got taken some outdoor module pictures by taking modules outside, taking pictures where the backdrop behind the module is actually, you know, a real scene, and it gives a pretty good show. So Dennis was on, and he was talking about all this great stuff you could do. And of course, he told me I totally screwed up because they're all in JPEG, they're not in RAW. But I said, Dennis, I said, hey, look at these and tell me what you think and tell me which one you think is good or bad, because I have no artistic sense whatsoever. So Dennis kind of looked at him, and then he and I talked. He said, hey, why don't we look at them tonight together and we can kind of talk about it. So what I thought I'd do first is talk a little about the Feather River photos. And these are the photos that I actually picked out. What I thought I would do is kind of walk you through real quickly where these came from. So this is actually starting into the Feather River Canyon coming out of Portola. And so you see, one of the beauties of digital photography is you can take a billion pictures because turns out memory sticks are really not that expensive. So, this is the Williams Loop here. You can kind of see here, this is the tunnel where the train goes underneath. Didn't get a very good picture. I thought these were kind of nice here. Some of these where you get the, you get the picture of the track up above going over the track coming out down below, but kind of not really spectacular. So it turns out I continue to drive up into the canyon. This is going from east to west. So starting from Portola, which is in the east, and going into California farther to the west. And as you drive that way, when you leave the Williams Loop, the next thing you come to is the Ketty Y. So it turns out as I'm pulling up the Ketty Y on the road, I happen to notice there's an engine coming down. So the Ketty Y, this branch of the Y goes east to west. So this is west, this is east. The other branch here goes north. And the Y, by the way, the third side of the Y is a tunnel back here. So I happened to see this train coming down and thought, wow, that's really cool. I've got a train. So I immediately parked and took a few pictures of it coming in, and then I ran up on top of the Y to try to get some pictures of it on the Y. Unfortunately, I didn't get what was the really good shot. I just couldn't get there in time to get the shot of the engine coming into the Y. All I was really able to get was the last two engines, the pusher engines coming into the Y. Got some nice pictures. Didn't feel they were really that spectacular. Some more Y pictures. Then what I was able to do is, the cool thing about this, once you find a train, you can basically blast down the road at about 60, 70 miles an hour, get far enough to head the train, you can find it in place. Once you kind of figured out these places, take the pictures, you just drive like a bat out of hell to get to the next place to take the next set of pictures. So got some here on the lake, got some nice reflections of the train in a lake. Come down a little bit further, and then you come to the Pulga bridges. And so what I thought I'd show you here is I got myself positioned. I knew the train was coming. The Pulga bridges are a road bridge above and the train bridge down at the water level. So this was, by the way, this was the Western Pacific route, through the canyon that they ran until they were taken over by the Union Pacific. It's still used, but most of the traffic goes over Donner Pass. So what I ended up doing was I knew the train was coming, so I started taking some pictures and I backed out a little bit, and then I saw the train coming, and I was trying to get some different pictures as it came in and see something. And then in the end, I got to this picture, which decided this picture was really cool because it framed the bridge above. You really didn't see it as a road bridge per se, but you got a good view of the train coming in. By the way, I don't know if you noticed on this train, this is a BNSF engine, and this is a UP engine in the middle of 4 BNSF engines on the train, showing how they share power in this area. So I ended up taking a few more pictures. So that was kind of the first set of pictures I actually got into here was this set of pictures. Then I ended up finding a point here where I got a nice picture on the of the train track. So I'm going to walk through this, and Dennis is going to kind of tell me how I screwed up. So we're going to walk through them and blow them at full size. So when I looked at this was the one I kind of thought was the best one to print. And I just let Dennis kind of comment on what's good and bad about it.
Well, actually, this one is spectacular, in my opinion. I can't see anything bad about this picture.
Oh, cool.
The lighting is great. You've captured the engine. The train is in a perfect spot. I mean, if it was any closer, it would be too close to the bridges that it's going to come over. And if it was any farther back, it wouldn't be quite as prominent. And you just nailed it. You really did. You nailed it. That's one of those things when you're taking these shots where you don't have any time and you just sit there and you zoomed in on it. There's nothing here that doesn't belong in the picture.
Cool. So this is a good one to use.
Yes, absolutely. I love it. If I was judging a contest, that would be one of the entries for sure. That would come into the judging for sure.
So later on at night, I actually was back in Portola, which is where the yards are, and there's a crossing coming in, and I happened to see this train coming, and I was right there, and I got this shot, which I think Dennis is going to tell me that not having this in RAW was a huge mistake, but I thought this one was kind of cool. I love just the way the lights come off the rails and kind of accentuate the rails off into the distance.
Yes, that is a really cool shot. But RAW, you know what I'm going to say. RAW would have helped you. You could have given yourself a little bit more contrast. Right now, what's happened is that it's foggy, and it's because you've got this tremendous lens flare, and there's not a damn thing you can do about that right now. If you had it in RAW, you could adjust your light, your whites and your blacks and your shadows and your highlights, and you could have brought that down to make an even better. You could have accented those rays that are coming out. So while it's a great shot as it is, it's a good shot. It could be a great shot.
Yep. I've learned now. That's one of the big things I learned with this. So this is actually a trestle that's just to the east of Portola. And what I was trying to do with this was kind of just get this idea of this kind of trestle going from one side of the world to the other side of the world, which I thought it was so cool. What's interesting is I'm sitting on a road and everything basically where I am, the sides and behind me is all fairly developed. But the whole canyon, the rest of the canyon is just almost wild. So I thought this one was neat because I thought kind of the idea of just the trestle just seems to continue to go on for a long time.
Well, what's neat about this shot is its simplicity. Okay, there's the geometry and the simplicity, and again, the lighting. You have a really good eye for capturing light at the right, where it needs to be. So that's a great shot.
Cool. And then this one, I just like this. This is actually in the Portola Railroad Museum. This is one of the F units that the Western Pacific used and they've restored. And I just think from an engine perspective, these were always interesting. This is actually, I don't think, a great picture, but I put it in there anyway. So not much,
Well,
go ahead. Yeah.
Well, what I was going to say is it's your typical 3/4 angle shot of an engine. It's not going to win an award, but the colors are really nice. And what I do like is the green, which you may have had. I don't know if you did that on purpose, but that little green to the left of the engine in the front contrast really nicely with the orange color on the engine front. So this and the blue sky. So this thing is all about color, in my opinion.
Yeah. And by the way, if you haven't been, again, going through the canyon in Portola, there's the Western Pacific, Historical Society, and they have a museum and they have a whole bunch of equipment. It's a really, really neat place to go to. I got a whole bunch of pictures of that, but I didn't think it was appropriate to show them today. So I put these two on one slide. Oh, hang on. Went too far there. This was one I really kind of liked because it showed the Ketty Y, the two sides of the Y and the train again getting close enough that you can actually see it. This is actually the end of the train going into the tunnel. And I like this because you kind of get to see a train on the Y, but this one to me is kind of minimal. But this one I really kind of like because it's kind of you get just kind of a bit of an idea of the scale of the whole thing.
The one on the left I like a lot. The one on the right, it's
Yep, you're absolutely right. So I think we kind of agreed that of these, the three that the two that I'll probably do for a contest is this one and this one, and then I'll probably also print this one for at home. And I may actually do this one. I may do this one here too for at home. I really like that. It's kind of so much this kind of towards the future. I kind of have this feeling of the way it goes into perspective just naturally. I really like.
Now the diesel engine with the bright orange hood, is that the actual color of it, or is that just the way the camera recorded it?
That is the actual color. That's actually the color that they did, and these were the passenger engines. So I'm sorry, hitting the wrong button. The passenger engines actually had stainless steel sides here. So, the passenger engines were that. When they've got the freight engines later, they were painted gray, kind of like I think the B unit is there. So the B unit here is not the same as this was the earlier passenger units. They're pretty neat engines. By the way, if you go there, they have a program where you can drive an engine when you're there. So the other thing I put in was a couple of module photos. I may have shown these. It was pretty obvious that the one behind me is one of these. So these are two modules. The one on the left is a model of the Wilder Ranch, which is now a state park just north of Santa Cruz. It was actually a creamery. Really interesting place to visit. When you go there, you park in the parking lot, and then you have to walk about maybe a quarter to half a mile, kind of down a little hill down to where the ranch was. And the ranch is actually has been incredibly well preserved, and it's literally a 1900s, 1920s ranch preserved. What's really interesting is when Wilder built this, he decided he needed a barn for the cows. And he decided the right way to build the barn was to build it as a truss bridge over a creek and put the cows in the truss bridge. And of course, then all of the output of the cows falls down in the creek and goes to the ocean. So I thought that was just ingenious. And by the way, they're completely rebuilding that now, but it's a barn. When you look at it, the skeleton of the barn is actually a truss bridge. And if you park in the parking lot up above, if you park in the parking lot and you walk west towards the ocean, you go about 30 or 40 feet from the parking lot and you hit the railroad tracks. So what happened was there were two railroads that got built going from San Francisco, one from San Francisco down, one from Santa Cruz up, that were actually both narrow gauge railroads at the time. And what happened was they didn't get the right to put their tracks across somebody's property. They had to negotiate to get the right of way. So what happened was all these farmers, to give the tracks the right to go across their property, they got two things. They got a siding and they got a whistle stop. So if you ever look at the old track plans for those narrow gauge railroads, you'll see all these stations, and the stations, the names are actually the names of the homeowners that had the property where the whistle stop was. So I figured for Wilder Ranch, I didn't really do the whistle stop, but what I was doing with Wilder Ranch was doing because it was obviously a cow farm, and I wanted to build the Banta the Banta stock pens. And then I thought you should have a small creamery building for it. So the pictures on the right are actually of another. These are both 2x4 foot modules. Is actually a model of the Mission Hill tunnel in Santa Cruz, which when they decided they didn't want the trains down the main street of town, the South Pacific Coast decided they couldn't do a cut, and they couldn't do a cut where they wanted because the mission, the original Spanish mission, was right above them. So they cut an 800 or 900 and something foot tunnel through the hill. So this is actually a model of that tunnel. And what I do is I did exactly what Tom did. I went and took a whole bunch of pictures of the actual tunnel and tried to model all the stone and what I could to make it look like it would have been. And what you see here on the right is the Park Street whistle stop. When they moved the Santa Cruz station from this location about 1885 or 1890, they established a whistle stop there called the Park Street. So I built a little whistle stop waiting station. So I actually have two of these, and I was asking to kind of show them and get a feeling from you, Dennis, of which one you like best. This is actually, again, this is taken outdoors. So what is actually part of the model ends right about here. So these bushes right here are actually part of the model. These bushes over here are actually not. And everything up here is actually not part of the model. This tree is part of the model, but kind of just took a picture there right across. It goes up a little bit here. One of the things that I found in this picture that I thought was really cool was when I took it, the sun was off to the left. So seeing the picture, it was time of day where the sun was probably 10 o'clock in the morning, 11 o'clock in the morning. West is off to the left. The sun had come up, and I was setting up and taking some pictures, and I happened to notice that if you position the vehicle wrist right, you can get a partial kind of reflection on the windshield, which I think makes it look very real. By the way, this vehicle was never even not weathered. I was just kind of playing with this, and it just turned out very nice. I don't know. I'll show you the second one, Dennis, to see. This one is a little bit larger shot, which is kind of a little bit nicer, but it loses a bit of the reflection. I think it looks a little less realistic, but it's nicer because you get more of the building, and there's a nice weathered decal and stuff on the side you really can't see. So I guess of those two, which one would you think is the better one to do, this one or this one?
I have issues with both of them.
Oh, good. Let's tear them apart. Because these I can retake a lot easier. I don't have to drive for 2 hours or 3 hours.
For one thing, the first thing that bothers me about this picture I'm looking at right now is the foreground is out of focus. That's a no-no. The weeds in the front and your corral boards, they're out of focus, and that just doesn't work for me. If you were to actually take this as a real shot outside, that would all be sharp. So what do you remember? Were you using a full F22 or whatever f-stop you were using? Do you remember what it was? Can you hear me? Hello? What's going on?
I don't know, Dennis, but you've got about a minute.
Well, apparently he's not hearing me,
Okay.
and I'm not muted.
He left. Yeah, I think his wife called him.
Oh, all right.
But I'm sorry we couldn't continue this, but we'll have to catch it next time.
Okay. All right. No problem.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it so very much, Dennis. Thanks.
Hey, no problem, man. Glad to do it.
Talk to you later.
All right. Bye.